Our Friday edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream, with you Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live, with all of our shows available to watch on demand inside the fan zone at lcpioneers.com and also on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, different members from our alumni base, as well as others from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community. Hi, everyone. I am Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark, the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and competing in the Northwest Conference. 9 institutions overall from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and a chance with over 430 institutions nationwide. Our student athletes competing at NCAA Division III level, a chance for a national competition window, and under normal times, non-pandemic times, a chance to compete and explore the world with Lewis and Clark's robust overseas study program as well. We will talk to the director for the Center of Entrepreneurship, the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship, Brian Detweiler-Bedell, today, and excited to close out, as this is our last show of 2020, talking about a part of Lewis and Clark that hasn't had an impact on so many students so far, and in some ways is still kind of a hidden secret. We need to get this out there and get people to know more about what the Entrepreneurship Center does. So we're excited to talk to Brian about just that. And this is one of those conversations I certainly anticipate will be probably only half done. We'll probably have to have Brian or someone else from the Entrepreneurship Center at some point on the show again in the future. If you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to reach out. You can do so in our Facebook Live comments, as well as suggest future guests or have follow-up questions through our email address, sports@lclark.edu. We always encourage you to follow up there. Of course, we are on Twitter and Instagram as well. You can find us at LC Pioneers on both of those platforms, as well as YouTube and our Facebook page. Now, we did make an announcement on Monday, a joint announcement with Willamette in regards to high-risk sports for 2020-21. It reads this way. It's on the front page of lcpioneers.com. In consideration of restrictions in the state of Oregon and the health and safety of our student athletes and wider campus and local communities, Lewis and Clark and Willamette announced with regret the cancellation of their football and men's and women's basketball seasons for 2020-21. We understand this news is disappointing to our students and campus communities. State restrictions on competition are unlikely to change, as football and basketball are considered high-risk sports by the NCAA, and the experiences of some colleges and universities have shown this to be true, even with strong safety protocols in place. This difficult decision was made after discussions with our Northwest Conference colleagues. We will continue to work with the Oregon Health Authority and the Northwest Conference to develop plans to return, if possible, to safe competition and lesser-risk sports. For those student athletes not competing in the spring, we will continue to find meaningful ways for them to engage in athletic and physical activity. Now, we've talked about this quite a bit, but because this is our last show of 2020, we do want to emphasize lcpioneers.com/COVID is the place to go for updates pertaining to athletics and the coronavirus pandemic. We do have links that go through to the Lewis and Clark College site too, if it's not athletics specific, but in regards to things from the NCAA, the Northwest Conference, and other things of that regard, lcpioneers.com/COVID. Last but not least, we do encourage you, like I said, to visit our YouTube page. We have all of our past shows through March 31st, all the way back to March 31st, available to watch on demand at youtube.com/lcpios. And as we round out the 2020 slate of shows, I am definitely thankful for everyone who made time for us to keep connected over the course of the pandemic. So with that said, let's bring in our guest for today, the director of the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. Excited to talk to Brian Detweiler-Bedell today on lcpioneers.com Live. And Brian, really appreciate you taking the time to join us and close out our 2020 slate of shows, as I mentioned. And this is really neat because I've had an opportunity to kind of see some of your programming, whether it's been Winterim or something else that the Entrepreneurship Center provides. But this is also maybe the first time anyone watching has had a chance to learn about what you do. So let's start with a general overview. What is the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you, Ryan, for having me here. And thanks for having us close out this fall term on the last show. I would want to say all the student athletes out there, I'm really looking forward to turning the corner on the pandemic and seeing all of you compete again in your regular seasons. That's a big part of what I like to do. I've been at the school for 19 years, so looking forward to that. It's an exciting time for the Bates Center. And you're right, Ryan. It's a little bit of a hidden gem just because it's taken a while to build something that we're really proud of. And right now, it's an exciting time at the Bates Center. So let me just tell you a little bit about what we do. Uh, we believe strongly in the liberal arts. All those critical thinking skills, analytic skills, communication skills that students learn in their regular majors are really powerful. And what the Bates Center exists to do is to take those great liberal arts skills and show students, train students in an entrepreneurial way of thinking, where they can use those skills to solve real world problems, whether it's in business or in nonprofits. So we have quite a bit of programming. And also, the students have just learned that last year we had the faculty approve a new academic minor in entrepreneurship. And we already have 25 students signed up for that minor. So I like to say that we really exist at this unique intersection between the liberal arts and innovation, where we're able to get students really hands-on involved in real-world problems. So let me give you an example of one of our programs, one of our earliest programs. Each winter, the week before the spring semester starts, we hold a Winterim for about 30 students. And those 30 students hear from and are mentored by 45 business leaders. So the ratio of business leaders to students is phenomenal. And over the course of the week, they learn quite a few things, but it's all in the service of developing an idea, a project in a group of students. And then they present that, pitch that idea to a panel, almost like in Shark Tank, a panel of business leaders. And, a few of the teams win for different reasons. And if Pio Nation hasn't heard yet, one of the teams from last year, the Ramez Zatia, who's on the tennis team, and Matt Brown, who's on the basketball team, they won one of the prizes at last year's Winterim. They went on to develop their idea, and they competed in the state finals for Invent Oregon, or Invent OR as it's sometimes called. And our scrappy little program with these two fantastic student athletes won the competition. They not only won the sort of people's prize, but they won the judge's prize and walked away with $12,000 to continue with their idea. So one of the things I'd like to say to all the listeners out there is the Bates Center and our programs around entrepreneurship and our classwork around entrepreneurship, they're really a natural fit for student athletes. We find that student athletes often are looking for a way to take what they're learning in the classroom and do something with it, whether it's in an applied sports field or start their own business or start a new nonprofit. Some of our very, very best customers, as I like to say, are our student athletes. So we have the minor in entrepreneurship now, where students take 6 courses and get a minor to go along with their major. We have the Winterim. We also have a Lunch with a Leader series. It's a little different this year because of the pandemic. It has to be virtual. But in normal years, it's students only in the room having lunch with a local or national business leader, hearing the story of that business leader, what brought them into the business that they're in. And the students really resonate with that. They're able to ask questions and really see themselves along a path like that leader. I think it's been a fantastic experience for those students. One thing I would like to say is we really value in the Bates Center diversity and inclusion. This year, for instance, our 5 Lunch with a Leader speakers were 100% women. 2 were leaders of color. 2 were, actually one was one of the first gay CEOs of a Fortune 500 company. I think this is really important to show all of our students, student athletes, underrepresented students, that they're part of this and that entrepreneurship can be an equalizer. So we have quite a bit of programming and would love to talk more about this. I think you're right. We're probably going to have a longer discussion than the 10 minutes allows. But happy to answer more questions about what's going on in the Bates Center.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that overview of many of the things that you supply through the Bates Center. We're talking to Brian Detweiler-Bedell, the director of the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. You talked about that natural fit for athletics, and we've talked about both Matt and Ramez. In fact, I think we've had Ramez on the show since winning Invent Oregon,
Yeah.
and I've seen so many of our student athletes, members of women's golf and men's basketball, etc., in on your Winterim. The Winterim is something that comes up in January, so that's a little more timely at this point. Let's talk about the Winterim and what specifically that programming provides our students.
Sure. Yeah. So the Winterman it's a pretty intensive program. So we run it. It's a full, I would say, 5.5 days the week before the spring semester, and we get the students jump started right away and thinking about a few different things. I mean, one is their understanding of the business world, their understanding of how education relates to their ability to solve problems, all the way from personal financial literacy to understanding what it takes to start a business or start a nonprofit. A lot of our students, because we are liberal arts, don't really have a sense of what it takes to start and sustain a business. And it's a natural bridge from the liberal arts to talk about that, especially when we're able to harness all of the network that we have around Portland. Portland is, I like to call it, a sort of kinder, gentler city, a sandbox where students can interact with CEOs in town. We are able to bring in CEOs. We're able to bring in LC alumni who've been very successful in different forms of businesses or in the nonprofit world. And so the students start by hearing from us and hearing from those business leaders what it really means to solve problems using the tools of business, using the tools of organizations. And over the course of the week, they start to be nudged to create their own idea. What problem would they, with a team of their peers, want to solve? And so, for instance, with Rollins and Matt, it was the problem of drunk driving. And they developed a new tool that would help prevent drunk driving by disabling a car if someone had too much to drink. And of course, that was an initial idea. And they had the idea thinking they would use it to sell to insurance companies. They realized, because of the mentoring very soon, that the real customer was parents. They were solving a problem for parents who were concerned about their teenagers driving while intoxicated. And it was through that mentoring that they got to the point where they gave a fantastic pitch during Winterim. After Winterim, they continued to work with the mentors. None of our programs are time delineated. None just exist in that week, or none just exist in 1 year or one course. We're a full service center where we like nothing more than our students to develop an idea and then continue to talk to us. After Winterim, that team received $2,000 in seed funding from the center to develop their idea further, to engage some engineers from Amazon to help them build their product. They received mentorship from one of the parents on the Parents Council on pitching their idea. They received mentoring also from a pitch coach that we connected them with. So the Winterim is a jumping off point, really, for a beginning of understanding of solving problems in the business world and nonprofit world. And it's a jumping off point for taking more advantage of what we do in the Bates Center, whether it's our network or whether it's our coursework.
And that's a really exciting opportunity coming up in mid-January. And I know a lot of times applications are due sometime in November. So if you didn't know about Winterim for 2021, there's opportunities always in the future. We'll make sure to link through to the Bates Center several times during the course of this interview. And then you also spoke about the academic minor. And I remember, I think I talked to you about this right before we got on air. I saw that being approved right about the time that learning went remote in the spring because of the pandemic. It was really exciting news, and it took a while for me to kind of latch onto it. But what a great opportunity for students coming to Lewis and Clark who may have that entrepreneurial instinct to get a degree in a liberal arts field and also go through and finish with a minor. Describe what that minor is and how it could be valuable to students at Lewis and Clark.
Absolutely. One thing we talked about before, Ryan, before the show, was the Bates Center doesn't exist separate from the other academics at the school. And one of the reasons why we started with the minor is because we think it's really important that students have a home expertise. So take a student who's majoring in communications, or what we call rhetoric and media study, or biology or psychology. We value that the students have studied a home discipline. And then what we're able to do is help them realize the power of that expertise and what they've learned in the classroom in their major and what they can do with it. So the minor is built around that concept. Take the student's expertise in other majors and learn to apply them. It took a long time to get the academic minor approved, but in the last spring, it was approved by 100% of the faculty, which was just fantastic. And it's pretty straightforward. There's three things that the liberal arts do fantastically well when it comes to innovation. One of them is understanding complex systems and how to find places in complex systems to create change. And so that idea is the basis of our introductory course, which is Innovation 101, which I'm just finishing teaching this semester. We have a second, what we call introductory course, that's around design thinking, because design thinking, that ability to harness the creative process, is yet another thing that the liberal arts do incredibly well. So we have those two courses as two of our introductory courses. We have electives ranging from a deep dive into creating new technologies of the future, which is taught by one of our faculty members. We have a course taught by one of our rhetoric and media studies professors, which is basically a high-level marketing class. How do you communicate a vision to others? So you take two of our introductory courses, two of those elective courses, and then really exciting is at the 300 level. We require each student to either take our flagship internship class, which isn't just pushing you out into an internship. It's partly the internship and partly what we call a seminar course, so that students get the most out of their internship. And not only that, but they develop a project where they're going to add some value to the organization they're working with. So a term-long project where they try to identify a problem faced by the organization that they're working with, and they come up with and propose a solution to that organization. So that's how the minor is structured. You take a couple introductory courses, a couple electives, and one of these, I'm calling it a capstone 300 level applied course. And you also are asked to do one of our co-curricular programs. So whether it's Winterim, or participate in Lunch with a Leader, or put in a grant for one of our seed funds. So it's the full package. By the time the students are done, they've gone from an understanding of how the liberal arts connects to solving problems to actually solving problems within an organization that they're working with.
We're talking to Brian Detweiler-Bedell on lcpioneers.com live. You can catch us Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, although this is our final live show of 2020, believe it or not. So best wishes to everyone over the final 2 weeks to stay healthy and enjoy the rest of the calendar year. Brian, getting people involved, accessibility to Portland, the campus just 6 miles from downtown Portland, Oregon, and then you go out west to Beaverton and there's these hubs of apparel like Nike and all over us at Lewis and Clark. If an alumnus is interested in getting involved, kind of elaborate on how one could do so, and then also the advantages of being so close to Portland to make it so that anyone who is in Portland still that might have ties to Lewis and Clark can help with the Bates Center.
Absolutely. In some ways, we're up on Palatine Hill, and we don't always do a great job getting our students to interact with Portland, which is a shame, right? Because of the riches that Portland has in terms of the network. The Bates Center's changed all that. The connections we have and the connections we want to continue to build. So if you're an alum out there who is interested in working with students, please let us know. We consistently have students come to us and say, I have an idea in the apparel industry or in education or in the cosmetics industry. And what we love to be able to do is connect those students to someone working in that space, hopefully in Portland, because then they can see each other face to face. They can go into an organization and see how those problems are being solved in that organization. But as we've learned from the pandemic, it doesn't have to just be in Portland. If you're anywhere in the nation, we can leverage Zoom now to connect you with students. It's really important for us to get students out into Portland and even beyond Portland to see how in the real trenches where people are trying to solve problems, create successful businesses, how they do that. A lot of our alumni who were athletes have come back and volunteered their services and willingness to mentor our students. If that's something that resonates with you, whether you're actually a parent of one of our students or if you're an alum, please connect with me. You can find my email online. We have a great team in the Bates Center, Chris Hutchins and Katarina Hunter, who are the associate director and our associate director of operations. You can connect with them. We work closely together, and we would love to build our network and have you be part of this team.
Well, we are certainly appreciative of you spending some time with us to close out our run of shows. Nearly 20 years, around the 20-year mark for you at Lewis and Clark, professor of psychology. Really appreciate all that you've done and looking forward to introducing or furthering the information about the Bates Center to those who watch our show. Brian Detweiler-Bedell, thanks so much for joining us on lcpioneers.com live.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And that is how we close out our shows for 2020. We will put some information to the entire staff at the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership in the chat, and we will also roll the spot that we play at the end of the show typically that talks about Winterim before we sign off with our last live show of the year. And it was really great to hear Brian talk about the way that the Bates Center is intentional about getting minorities, women involved, and making sure that is something that is in their programming. In fact, I remember being told that this is part of that mission, is to make sure that the Bates Center elevates women and students of color as they go through the programming at Lewis and Clark. And that's what's been really neat to see is as I've observed Winterim and the pitch and all these different parts of that course and that opportunity, you see that kind of being proven out, especially within the student athlete base too at Lewis and Clark. Since we come from the athletic side of things, it's really neat to see. And again, Brian was probably able to touch on 20-30% of all the things that are available to students through the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. So I'm very grateful and thankful to have Brian's time today and get a little bit of a glimpse into all the great things that they do. Like I said, we are off live shows until January 5th, 2021. So ahead of the new year, Happy New Year to everybody. And thanks so much for spending over 40 weeks of shows of lcpioneers.com live with us. If you miss any of our past shows, of course, available to watch on demand in the fan zone at lcpioneers.com, or you can also go to youtube.com/lcpilots, and you can see some of the re-airs featuring mostly our current student athletes over the course of the next few weeks. I think we're going to take the Fridays off over the course of the next 2 weeks, the 25th of December and New Year's Day. So stay tuned at lcpioneers.com/live for all of our re-airs that we plan to have. And thank you so much for having fun with us on the show. It's been informative to hear some of the stories that we've had a chance to hear from our student athletes, alumni, how Lewis and Clark has made an impact for both coaches and some of the great things that they enjoy about the opportunity to coach student athletes at Lewis and Clark and within the Northwest Conference, the accessibility to Portland and all the great things that makes Lewis and Clark really a hub for finding success. I mean, that's really been the traditional part of a Lewis and Clark student athletes experience, is finding success and whatever success looks like to them. And we've shared those stories on the show. And with Brian as a case in point, a look at the broader parts of Lewis and Clark that's not just in the department. It's really easy for us, especially when events are going in a non-pandemic time, to get siloed into thinking mostly through, week to week. At least I'm speaking for myself. That's definitely been a big challenge. And because you've been so kind to tune into the show, check out the YouTube replays and be involved, saying yes. All the guests who have said yes to be on the show, I would be able to get something that, has been in my head for the 4 or 5 years I've been in the athletic communications role off the ground, and something that, based on the feedback from you and others, that I think will stay for sure, even when we get back to a non-pandemic schedule. So please stay safe and be sure to enjoy as much as you can enjoy things right now. And please come back. We look forward to seeing you again in early January 2021. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks so much for having fun with us. We will see you again very soon for some re-airs, and later on in 2021 for our next live show of lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream. Goodbye, everybody.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my two group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.